How's it going? So I've been going through and trying to showcase really good ways to get into Final Fantasy TCG. And people will sometimes say like, "Hey, I really like, the concept of the game. What do I do to get started? What's the best way to, play the game at a constructed level without spending a ton of money?" And I will always point them to this product right here. It's the custom starter set Final Fantasy X. It has a very good deck inside, and it's very cheap. And more than that, I've taken this deck, including the deck itself, and made it pretty solid. I mean, you're not going to win a tournament. There's definitely some upgrades you'd want to make before you had a super competitive Guardians list. But this is more than enough to get you kind of at the table where you can play at locals, play with friends, and your deck should be good enough to have a chance, which is really all you should be looking for when you're first starting a TCG. Kind of gives you a feel for the game, whether you like it, whether you want to continue with it. So, let's go. Let's take a look. So, here's the base starter deck list. And as far as starter decks go, it's actually not bad. The starter cards in Yuna, Tidus, Lulu, Orin, Riku, and Kimari are, or sorry, Kimari's not one, but they're pretty good. Lulu has seen a lot of competitive play. Orin has seen a lot of competitive play. Riku is a very, very strong payoff, even if she's a little slow. And Tidus is so good for the deck. It does come with a third Tidus, but that's part of the whole 100 cards it gives you to try to build your own custom version of the deck. So where's this deck lacking? Honestly, the summons and backups just kind of suck. It's nice that these are EX bursts to draw you a card, but you're really not expecting much more than that. The backup line, there's not a lot of synergy in any of these. They're just kind of random. Lots of standard units, which is nice. It means that you're unlikely to be name locked. But it doesn't mean that you're kind of relying on hard drawing them, which isn't really how competitive Final Fantasy is played. And then this Lene backup just sucks. She's really bad. So she's kind of there for flavor. And maybe if Waka could get the counter from an FF10 character, but he only gets it on forwards. So it's not really a reason to play her other than just flavor. So here is my upgraded list. You'll notice we're still playing Guardians. We're still using quite a few cards from the starter deck. We've just made it better. So first things first, we're going to start with the backups because that's where the biggest overhaul happened. So we have two engines here. First things first, we kept two of our three brothers that were in the starter deck. It's just generally nice to be able to search out almost any of the forwards in this deck that you can get with it. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different targets. Very worth the investment, and all these targets are incredibly powerful, especially in multiples. You kind of want to have at least two Guardians in hand when you really start doing things. But beyond that, we have a small Sky Pirate engine as our backup engine, and this allows us, you'll notice we're playing 15 backups and only one water backup. That's because we're going to cheat our water with Philo. Philo says the job Sky Pirate backups can make wind or water CP element. So she basically says that all of our backups that are Sky Pirates, which includes herself, are going to be Omni backups. So Philo, Fran, you can run one copy of Tomage if you would like, but also in the next set we're getting a Kites backup, and that's actually going to make this deck even stronger because that gives you another backup. For a while on this list, I was even considering running the Vaughn Legend as a way to kind of cheat the Philo out from deck. As it is, you have to hard draw her, so maybe it's worth even adding an extra copy of her to the list to make sure that you have access to her so that you're not struggling to cast your water cards. But even then, this deck does tend to be very wind heavy outside of some of the summons, so it wouldn't be the biggest deal. Yeah, so we have Penelo. Penelo gets either our Fran or our Philo. We have two copies of Jote. Jote is great because she's an EX burst that gets us one of two different backups, which is fantastic. We have one copy of Chocobo Sam to find a Choco Latte, so we get just another card that represents two wind backups. Also represents the one copy of Chocobo in the deck if for some reason you would just rather go digging maybe you already have 4 backups and don't really need the Choco Latte at that point. So, we are on so many wind backups. You might say, like, this is wind water, why are we on so few water? We're trying to enable Fina. So Fina is an incredibly powerful forward. So if she's in your hand and you have 4 wind backups, you can cancel an auto ability by removing Fina in your hand from the game. This is incredibly hard to stop, it's incredibly hard to interact with, and it's incredibly cheap for the effect. The equivalent effect would be Amaterasu, which admittedly kills the forward, but Amaterasu is a summon that can be interacted with much easier than Fina, and Amaterasu costs 3 CP on top of that effect. Fina essentially does it for free as long as we have enough wind backups. You can try to make room for a third one, maybe by cutting the Tros, but I kind of like it at 2 just because she's not always going to be online, but when she is, she's very good. So let's go through our forward lineup. So we have the 3 Yuna as our kind of centerpiece. We've put the 3rd Tidus in. We have the 3 Waka, the 3 Orin. We've cut down to 2 Lulu, 2 Riku. Lulu's a little strange in this list because you don't necessarily have amazing value off of her. But there are enough good summons to recur that it's definitely worth it when you factor in cards like Leviathan. And Riku, she's a little high roll, so you see a lot of competitive lists, like not competitive, less budget lists will be cutting the Rikus. But in a list like this, we're really looking for all the advantages we can get. Riku is both an EX burst, and she is incredibly powerful if she's allowed to resolve her effect, either because we control a Rydia or a Yuna. We've also taken the 2 starter Jeks. You will have to order the 3rd Jek from TCG player, don't forget that. But Jekt is crazy in this list. He's a Final Fantasy X character for Orin, or for Waka. He's searchable off of Tidus, and there is a very easy combo you can do where you have something like a Yuna, an Orin, and a Waka, and you go Tidus for free, attack with any forward, play Jekt, bounce the Tidus, play Tidus, search a 2nd Jekt, and all of a sudden you have Jekt block online for a 2nd auto cancel. So once this deck gets ahead, it's very, very solidly in the lead. The power ceiling on this deck is crazy in comparison to what a lot of other decks are capable of. So for our non-Final Fantasy X package, actually we also do have 1 copy of Sin, another Final Fantasy X character we can search off of Brother that also happens to give Waka more counters, and this Floodgate effect can be very powerful. So for our non-Final Fantasy X cards, we have just a good stuff package. We have 1 copy of Aerith. This is a 2nd way to bounce the Tidus. Because again, remember, Tidus can become free, which is very critical. It's why this card is so powerful. 1 copy of Zidane, along with 1 copy of Azura. This allows us to both recur any of our Wakas or our Orins, but also just to get our Zidane back to hand. And then Zidane, he's a little high roll, but again, when you're in a budget list and you can steal a really good card, that is always good. It means you're kind of playing a more expensive deck than you really paid for. The downside to Zidane is you need to be very careful about stealing backups, because if you're playing your backups you're stealing, you're going to turn off your Finas. We have 2 copies of Fina. We've already gone over her. We have 1 copy of Lightning. Lightning is kind of budget Typhon for this list. Only on the 1 copy of her because she's a little strange to play timing-wise. But she's very good when she comes up. And she's just good value if she ever does remove anything. It almost doesn't matter what you remove with Lightning, as long as Lightning removes something. We're on 1 copy of Rydia. We have a slightly low summon count, but you can use this to kind of dump your Azura and maybe like a Chocobo or a like Leviathan 6. So you kind of maintain some hand advantage. She's another summoner for Riku and Orin, and she's just a good card in general to kind of filter your deck out a bit. Lastly, our upgraded summons and 1 monster. We have 1 copy of Azura. This will help us recur any of these, but we're not really a Storm deck, so the main use for this is the choose a character card of cost 2 and add it to hand. One copy of Chocobo. This is a nice search off of Chocobo Sam. It's a good EX burst. It's very cheap, helps us dig for our payoffs as we need them as well. 2 copies of Chocomog. This is kind of a well-known combo that Chocomog plus Lulu basically kills any forward in the game. We don't have any Moogles, so there's no way to get the draw off of the card, but you can definitely like find ways to make that happen if you wanted to. I just opted not to. 2 copies of Leviathan 4 and 2 copies of Leviathan 6. You can mix these ratios around a little bit. Leviathan 6 is a little bit expensive. This is like a $2 card right now. Leviathan 4 is about 40 cents, but Leviathan 6 is nice because you can get your Jeks back, your Wakas back. There's just so many good recursion targets with Leviathan 6 that it's hard to argue against it. And then the 1 copy of Tros as kind of... This deck wants to take some damage anyway, and Tros ends up just being kind of good value in general. There's ways of bouncing with Riku and Jekt in the deck already, but also like you can attack with Tros at damage 3 and it kind of just does, it fuels itself at that point too. It's just a good card. Kind of the main reason it's in here. But yeah, that puts the deck at being 28.18 with shipping included, so not including tax, but that's crazy. Like, holy cow. And yeah, I genuinely think that you could take this deck to locals, and if not win, you could win some games. But like, regardless, you're going to be learning how the game is played, playing at a higher level, and kind of seeing how these cards interact when you're not just, you know, kind of mashing starter deck cards against one another. So that's going to do it. Let me know what you guys think. As always, deck lists are in the description down below. And let me know if there's any starter decks that you'd want me to tackle. So I can definitely try to make Avalanche work, although it's going to be a little bit more expensive given that you have to, that deck needs the Barretts and the Tifas. And Arden's such a strange deck that I would love to see tackled on a budget, but I don't really know. I don't think anybody's really figured out a good Arden deck regardless. So yeah, let me know what you guys think. Thanks for watching.